of his height, right? So looking at this thing here, if within 2 standard deviation, meaning again, if it's within 2 standard deviation, this is what we have. It's within 2 standard deviation, which is, do you see that if the adult are within 2 standard deviation, then we say that he are in a 95%, right? He are within 95% of all male height, right? Again, you are 95% in that region of all male height. We are not, again, one thing about this thing here, this is not, please do not mistake that this versus the percentile. Remember, the 95% is the middle of the pack, okay? The percentile is from the left to whatever that number is, that's the percentile, okay? For this thing here, this is not a percentile. That 95 right here is not the 95 percentile. This is 95% of the data, meaning the male are in a 95% of all of the male height, okay? So again, similarly, number 11, similarly, they ask you, suppose the price of a certain model of a new home are normally distributed with the mean of 150,000, 100,000, using the 68, 95, 99.7 rule to find the percent of the people pay between pay between 149, 100,000, 100 and 150,900 if the standard deviation is 9. So remember, to do this thing here, the first thing we need to do is we need to know what is my z-score, right? What is my z-value? Which is, reminder, the z-value is the data minus the mean divided by the standard deviation, which is, you have to take the data, which is, again, we have to take the data, which is 149, minus the mean, which is 150, divided by the standard deviation, which is 900, which is, again, 149,100 minus 150, 900. Oh my God. No. 150, which is, again, my mean is 150, right? Which is, again, 149,100 minus 150,000, which is the mean, is equal to negative 900 divided by 900 to give you a -1, right? And again, we have to find the other one, which is, what is the other z-score, which is, the other z-score is 150, right? 150, which is my other z-score. I need to find this item, convert to the z-score, which is 150,900 minus the mean, which is 150,000, right? Which is, again, if you minus that, you have 900, which is 900 divided by 900 will give you 1. So again, within 1 standard deviation, everybody see that within 1 standard deviation, how much, or what is the percentage, which is within 1 standard deviation, we can see that there are 68%. The rule is 68% of your data, right? The rule is approximately 68%. If you go to do with the chart, we did this last time, is actually 68.28, right? But again, because of the empirical rule, we just say approximately 68% of your data of the people based on this information, 68% of them buy the house between these two prices, the 149,100 and the 150,900, right? 68% of that, of the data, right? So question with this 4 problem here, beside that small typo, is 99.7. Right? If you don't have a question, let's take a look at this thing here, which is number 12. Similarly to number 11, they ask you to use the rule, right? Again, on Alex, if they ask you to use the rule, you have to use this rule. If they don't ask you to use the rule, you will use the chart. They will have a chart for you. The chart for them is a bigger chart, but it's the same chart that we have like before. So looking at this thing here, they ask us, suppose that the price is same thing go, the mean is 150. Using this rule, find the percent of buyer who pay between 150 and 153,000 800. So again, same thing like before. In order for us to find this item, we have to find the z-score, which is 150 minus 150 equal to 0. 0 divided by the standard deviation is still 0, right? And again, the other one we have is 153,800 minus 150,000. That will give you 3,800. Divided by 1,900, that will give you 2. Which is, again, if you have a chart, you can find a z-score of 0, which is 50%, z-score of 2, which is probably 97 point something percent, and then you subtract the 2 to find a between, right? But they don't ask you that. They ask you to use this rule. So reminder, ladies and gentlemen, what is this rule? Well, one thing is the rule tells us that from -2 to 2, from -2 to 2 is 95%, right? Within 2 standard deviation. Everybody remember, if we go down 2, go up 2, that is 95% of my data. And again, but do they ask us from -2 to 2? Well, no, right? They ask us from 0 to 2. And from 0 to 2, what does that mean? Well, from 0 to 2, that is only half of from -2 to 2, right? From -2 to 2, just imagine from -2 to 2, we have to take 4 steps. And then from 0 to 2, I only take 2 steps, which is half of the 4 steps, right? So because I know that the whole item is 95%, because the rules say that within -2 to +2 is 95% of your data, but now I only need half of them. And if I only need half of them, all I need to do is take 95 divided by 2, because I need half of them, which is 47.5. Okay, which is again the percentage of the people who buy the house between 150,000 and 153,800 is 47.5%, right? So again, that's the idea here is, I told you the empirical rule is a little bit, iffy, or not iffy, but a little bit restricted in terms that you have to either go from -1 to 1, 0 to 1, or something like that, where you have to divide by 2, okay? But again, this is the idea that of using that rule, we have to convert to the z-score as always, and then from the z-score, we have to see how much of the percent is covered, right? So number 13, a set of data is normally distributed with the mean of 600. Convert the data to a z-score if the standard deviation is given. So again, given this thing here is pretty much straightforward, right? The only thing we need to do, what we've been doing so far a lot, right? We've been doing a lot up here, number 12, number 11, we've been doing all this thing, but I did not mention it. But again, your z-score, reminder, your z-score is the data minus the mean divided by the standard deviation, right? We've been doing the z-score, just that we did not call it z-score. But again, it's the same z-score, right? So looking at this thing here, to find this thing here, all we do is we take the data minus the mean, which is 70 minus 60, divided by the standard deviation, which is 10. Which is, in this case, we have 10 over 10, which is 1, right? Similarly, looking at this thing here, again, the z-score, which is the data minus the mean, which is, again, data is 78 minus the mean is 60, divided by 12 in this case, which is 18 divided by 12 to give you 1.5. Okay, so again, this thing here, they just ask you to plug it in, and that's what chapter 11 is, right? Chapter 11 is basically just plug into the formula. I think you have to remember the formula, ladies and gentlemen. You have to remember the data minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. I don't think they give it to you guys, so you have to remember the formula on top of everything else. So once we have this thing here, which is, again, let's take a look at number 14. So number 14, hopefully we did not do this over the review, or not over the review, but over in your, I think we did. But anyway, look at number 14. Instead of ask you for the z-score, they give you the z-score. Now they only ask you for the data, right? What is the data corresponding to this z-score, right? So again, you can do two things, which is you can either start from 500 and jump two space, which is again every time you jump you add 40. Or if not, you have to remember, or not remember, but this is how to find the data. The data is the mean plus the z-score times the standard deviation, right? So again, it's just the backward algebra of the z-score formula. We multiply the standard deviation and then we add the mean. That's how we find the data, which is in this case, what is my mean? My mean is 500. My z-score, they give me the z of 2 and the standard deviation of 40, which is 2 times 40 is 80, 80 plus 500 to give me 580, right? Remember, I told you if you start from 500 and you jump two spaces. Every time you jump, you add 40, which is again 500 plus 40 is 540. 540 plus 40 is 580, which is that's what we have. And similarly, which is this thing here, to find the data corresponding to the z-score of 1.5 is again 500 plus the z-score is 1.5 times 80, which is in this case 180 times 1.5 will give you 120. 120 plus 500 will give you 620. One thing is make sure that this z is positive. That's why you add. If on the homework, on the final exam, if the z is negative, remember